This here is the new Lenovo Yoga 7, a true 2-in-1 unibody laptop housing a blazing fast AMD Ryzen 7 8840HS processor with Ryzen AI and Radeon 780M graphics. On the surface, she's a productivity workhorse, but there's much more here than meets the eye, and we've partnered with Lenovo and AMD in this one to bring these things to light. Starting first with the obvious, a beautiful gray aluminum exterior. It feels premium in the hand, but also quite thin. The edges and seams are all nipped and tucked, and nothing feels plasticky, which is great for a laptop that costs under $1,000, fully loaded, mind you. Branding is on the minimal side, which is nice. You'll find a Lenovo logo below the keyboard near the fingerprint reader and along the lower backside of the screen. The Yoga brand is a bit larger on the opposite corner, and a small Dolby Vision Atmos logo rests near the trackpad. If you're wondering, the underside of the device is very clean and void of any prominent text at all, although I imagine you won't be looking much under there. The port selection is also very generous. You'll find two USB-C ports along the left edge, accompanied by an HDMI 2.1 port. A unified jack resides further down as well. And off to the right, you'll find two USB Type-A ports, along with a micro SD card reader and power button with integrated LED. The rear edge has no ports at all, and this needs to be the case because, well, the Yoga 7 2-in-1 folds into a tablet. You can think of this as a sort of hybrid device, perfect for desk or lap work, sure, but also convenient while on the go. When fully folded, it's not even an inch thick. You can see that's pretty thin considering this is a full laptop. And you combine that with Lenovo's tilt and pressure pen, you've got a full-fledged tablet with a large IPS touchscreen that can be optioned up to OLED. This one's intended target is the creator, someone concerned with suites, say like Adobe, whose Photoshop, Premiere, and After Effects programs can prove quite taxing on inferior hardware. The 8 cores and 16 threads baked into the AMD 8840HS prove more than capable in a variety of complex workloads, chewing through a Cinebench R32 synthetic like it was made of paper, and rendering densely packed 4K timelines in respectable windows considering we're working with OpenGL. Make no mistake, for the price, these Yoga 7 models can definitely hold their own. It also doesn't hurt that these ship with 2 months of free Creative Cloud trials. The full suite at your disposal for 2 whole months. That's not too bad. So if you're looking to get your feet wet, this might be your chance. And on the subject of workloads, I want to talk a little bit about this because folks hear AI nowadays and they quiver a little bit. AMD's Ryzen AI processing can and does expedite complicated tasks like denoising graphics and video, summarizing and responding to messages, emails, and more. You can turn just a few scribbles of notes into entire dissertations with the right guidance, and being able to rely on AMD's efficient in-house chip for the calculations can save both time and money. Look, I know AI is an extremely overused acronym by this point in mid-2024, but when used correctly and when kept as local as possible, it can simplify a workflow in seconds. Take Premiere, for example. Feed it a few prompts, allow it to conjure captions for raw footage, and watch as it trims the fluff in a blink of an eye. It is incredible how quickly it does this stuff. This is literally hours of work just completely vanishing right in front of us. It's stuff that we can do today as content creators thanks to advancements in AI. It doesn't always have to have a negative connotation. Now, this being a 16-inch 2-in-1, I mean, she's not the smallest, so it can be a bit heavy for some folks to hold, especially with one hand. It's gonna take probably a 2-hand use, or again, you could put it in tent mode like we did here. You can also lay it completely flat if you want. So that's cool. It ain't called the Yoga for nothing. Or you could set it up in its traditional laptop mode like so. The screen's gonna orient itself according to how you have the screen rotated. And of course, the keyboard will just completely turn off if you have it flipped around so that you don't accidentally push keys you don't intend to. Speaking of that keyboard, it's a full size with 10 keys, which is nice. The travel is pretty good. It feels fairly tactile for a laptop. That's something I didn't really expect. The key spacing is not really my cup of tea. Lenovo tends to space their keys out just a tad more, although I will note that despite having tons of functions built into this, it doesn't feel all that cluttered when I'm just, on the go typing in, say, Microsoft Word or something. In fact, typing comes fairly naturally, and I imagine many creators will appreciate full-sized shift keys. Just another personal pet peeve of mine. Thank you, whoops, that's sticky keys. Thank you, Lenovo, for including full-size shift keys. I just wanted to throw that out there. A bit more on the screen, I am really digging the 16:10 aspect, so this is gonna be slightly taller than a conventional 16:9 ratio, what you would find in a normal TV or typical gaming monitor. And this is a huge help when, say, video editing or photoshopping. The extra real estate takes the hassle out of densely packed timelines, allowing you to see more at once with scrolling up and down all the time. And if you're rocking the OLED version of the Yoga 7, you won't even notice the black bars along the top and bottom while consuming traditional 16:9 media. It's just really nice having more vertical real estate. Any creator, trust me, will appreciate something like this. It just helps the screen not feel as cluttered, and that's something that's very difficult to avoid on laptops even as large as this one. This also has 10-point multi-touch support, which is cool, regardless of the screen technology you choose, by the way, whether it be IPS or OLED. But the OLED variant also includes up to 400 nits of peak brightness and 100% DCI-P3 color reproduction with Dolby Vision. It's the way to go in my book. I recommend it, unless you aren't at all familiar with OLED, and at that point, you might not want to buy OLED, because once you do, you're never going to want to go back. Both of these are 60 hertz capable. They don't go any higher than that. But again, you have to think about what these are intended for. Creators in the field, folks on the go who aren't necessarily gaming, but rather creating. Don't get me wrong. She'll still game pretty well, actually, considering AMD's Radeon 780M in here is far from what we refer to as, quote, ideal for a gaming setting. And look, its 2 gig frame buffer is going to quickly become a limiting factor in titles, say, any newer than GTA 5. Right? We can maintain above 60 FPS here, but jump to anything newer like Dirt 5, still in 1080p, the medium preset, and yeah, the story begins to change a bit. You could, of course, lower the resolution, lower the in-game settings even more, and hit that 60 FPS cap, but Lenovo was quick to point out that this is far from what they deem as a gaming-worthy laptop. But I always like to try. And all things considered, this isn't really all that bad. Static simulator games, MOBAs, would be perfectly fine to run on this machine, provided you can handle the 60 hertz cap. Pair that with 16 gigs of system RAM, which this has, dual channel, 6400 megahertz, and the Yoga 7 should prove quite the contender. Now let's talk creature comforts. The first thing I noticed in this device was the manual camera shutter above the screen. It's literally just a manual slider that covers the lens, and I thought this was pretty clever. One more way to reassure your users that you actually do have privacy online, which is important to a lot of people. By the way, here's a quick selfie I took with it. All right, this is a 1080p infrared camera, so it's not packing crazy levels of detail or anything, sure, but it is plenty for online conference calls. And this is a test of the built-in video quality. This is only a 1080p 30 FPS camera, but like I said, it should be plenty for online calling and the like. If you use Skype or something along those lines, this is plenty for that. It's not going to be anything, game-changing. Of course, most laptops kind of fall short in that regard, but that's not what these are intended for. These aren't supposed to replace, say, full-on like mirrorless cameras and the like. I'm also curious what you guys think about the microphone quality in this one. I'm moving around the room to show you how the camera deals with dynamic lighting changes, shifts in color tone. Sorry, it's probably a bit jarring that I keep moving around. Okay, back to the regular stuff. So there are two 2-watt Dolby Atmos audio speakers baked into this frame, both upward firing and closer toward the back here near the screen, which is nice. I was surprised by the low tones. It was actually more prominent than I expected them to be. This really does pack a punch altogether, and you really get a sense of Dolby's tuning capabilities with these little drivers. So, now that the bulk of performance is out of the way, one vital question remains: battery life. And thanks to AMD's latest smart power management feature, this device can survive just wave after wave of brutal workload without the need to be plugged in all the time. It's always that constant tug of war, right, between being as powerful as you can be in such a small footprint and also maintaining that power efficiency as well. Because if your laptop always has to be plugged in to really stretch its legs, it's not really a laptop at that point. It loses the portability aspect of the device, which is kind of the whole point of laptops to begin with. And this is perhaps the best thing about these new Yoga 7 devices. So they're not only insanely powerful for the dollar spent, again, under $1,000 as spec'd, which is pretty insane, but they're also insanely efficient. 8040 series processors have this sort of magic baked into them that allows for local video playback at this point up to nearly 20 hours in the right conditions, okay, airplane mode, low brightness, but you can make it work, and that's kind of unheard of, especially for a laptop this big and this thin as well. This is not like a full 99 watt-hour battery you could expect in some of the big chonkers out there. I actually think this is only just over 70 watt-hours. So that's pretty impressive battery life for a battery that's really not as big as it could be. And in my own personal testing, which I encourage you to cross-reference with other full-fledged, genuine reviews, streaming 1080p video at 50% brightness and volume, I was still averaging just over 4 hours of playback. But if you find the need to charge, the included brick is actually super compact, so you can throw it in into your backpack and forget it's even there. It also relies on the USB-C interface and is capable of intelligent rapid charge with an emphasis on preserving battery health in the long run by enabling features like conservation mode in Lenovo Vantage. I'm honestly so glad to see the Gen 9 Yoga 7 2-in-1 back in the spotlight. These laptops are so cool for their all-around flexibility. I mean, literally, and it's also pretty great that they boast hefty AMD hardware without breaking the bank. I'm also glad they've cleared up, okay, I need to stop doing this. I'm glad they've cleared up some of their region-dependent naming conventions. This is me being a little nitpicky, but Lenovo HQ, if you're watching this, thanks for clearing up the naming stuff. It was just very jarring having to sort out the naming conventions between, say, the States and Europe and Asia. As a reviewer, that is much appreciated. I do think that these laptops have a place in the creator spotlight, and it doesn't hurt that the ecosystem has been cleaned up along the way. Just wanted to throw that out there. And when coupled with cutting-edge processors, obviously, like the 8840HS and Ryzen AI, the new Yoga 7 is sure to impress for years to come. To learn more about them, including this specific device, consider checking out relevant links in the video description. I want to thank both Lenovo and AMD for giving us a chance to share this 2-in-1 with you. I also want to encourage you to test, again, the claims that I've made in this video for yourself. If possible, visit a big box store, play around with the device, get familiar with it, and this is an important one, watch plenty of reviews for an informed purchase. I'm confident the Yoga 7 will remain a solid contender at its price point. My name's Greg. Thanks for learning with me.